Thank you, everyone, for joining us again on this fun-filled, packed day of briefings, public briefings. Greetings and salutations to one and all. We are now at a public meeting with the Standing Committee on Economic Development and Environment. My name is Robert Hawkins. I am the MLA for Yellowknife Centre, as well as the chair of the Standing Committee on Economic Development and Environment. I will, for the attendance record, I will ask members starting on my far right to introduce themselves, and then I'll go online, and then we will proceed next to introducing our presenter and follow through from there. That said, if you would please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am Kate Reed. I'm the MLA for Great Slave here in Yellowknife.
Good afternoon. I'm Shauna Morgan, MLA for Yellowknife North here in Yellowknife. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I now go online to, I believe we have at least one member from committee currently available for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Julian Morse, MLA for Frame Lake in Yellowknife.
Okay. Fantastic, everyone. Okay, so folks, today before us we have, if I say his name right, I certainly hope so, and if I say it incorrect, please help me with the pronunciation. We are joined by Mr. Tim Kalke, General Manager of Sustainable Energy for Galena, Alaska, Inc., to receive a briefing on renewable heating and economic diversification as part of the committee's study on this topic. Now to our presenter, of course, we ask that all discussion go through the chair and be recognized. We have the high-tech folks who will manage our microphones for us, including yours, and I believe we will be managing your presentation on your cues, as earlier discussed. That said, I'd like to pass the microphone on over to the presenter. I'm eager to hear your presentation, and as always I say, our millions of subscribers are very keen on what you'll have to say today. That said, Mr. Kalke, if I'm saying it correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong. Please proceed when you're ready.
Well, thank you very much. And yes, you pronounced it correctly. Tim Kalke, General Manager of Sustainable Energy for Galena, Alaska, otherwise known as SEGA. I trust you can hear me fine?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, I very much appreciate this opportunity to present to this distinguished body and the invitation to do so from a previous opportunity of sharing, lessons learned and activities we're engaged with at the recent Arctic Bioenergy Summit in Yellowknife. My colleagues from Galena and I had a wonderful time there, and we're excited to present here. As you can see with the images on our opening slide, we're here today to talk about renewable heat integration into systems, and in our case, that's a very remote community. But our story, as you'll soon hear, starts with a biomass project that has, over the last 10 years, really brought a number of other value-added benefits to our community. Next slide. A brief agenda in an image for those who are unaware of where Galena is located. We're very near the interior portion of the state of Alaska. It is a roadless community, meaning that we are off the Alaska highway system, approximately 300 air miles west of Fairbanks, Alaska. Galena is located on the north bank of the Yukon River. Next slide. Our approach to activities in Galena is really based off of projects that follow and emphasize the essence of community energy, ensuring good participation in all aspects of decision making, as well as ensuring that projects that move forward receive adequate and appropriately distributed benefits. Next slide. Galena, or Nahtali Day, the place where the water swirls, is predominantly a Koyukon Athabascan community. The present site of Galena was also used or introduced to the Western influence in the 1920s as a mining settlement, and later the location of a U.S. Air Force base. Like most remote economies in remote areas, Galena is a mixed economy, experiencing a small amount of market transactions, a large amount of subsistence activity, and then, of course, in the 21st century, a large amount of the transfer economy. Next slide, please. And our story is built upon a strong foundation of the Cayucan Athabascan that have made Galena what it is today. Next slide. Looking at more recent times, Galena faces energy challenges quite common to communities in Northern Territories. I don't think these statistics and cost per volume of fuel is a surprise to anybody in this presentation. Very expensive, long transportation lines, and limited physical and human capacity to make energy systems work. Next slide, please. Galena is unique in many ways, but as I previously mentioned, it's home to a former Air Force base that was constructed in support of the Lend-Lease Act during World War II. That infrastructure has since been turned over to the operations of the city of Galena and is used by the Galena City School District to facilitate a residential boarding school called Galena Interior Learning Academy, or GILA. When that ownership transfer took place, the Air Force gifted the community approximately 1.5 million gallons of heating fuel to satisfy the heating system of the infrastructure. Now, the old steam distributed centralized heating system consumed nearly 250,000 gallons a year. Not only is that unsustainable, considering that diesel fuel has to be transported via barge to the community, but the costs associated with that were unfeasible for the school district to be able to continue. So community leadership needed to band together to find a solution that would stabilize fuel costs or make them cheaper, while also bringing value-added benefits rather than every dollar spent on fuel exiting the community. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is some of the legacy infrastructure, the oil boilers and the tanks. Next slide. One part of the solution to the problem was the installation of a wood-fired boiler. Next slide. I'm aware that your region is not a stranger to biomass projects from the experience and lessons that I learned during the visit a couple of months ago. But in remote communities, it's one thing to install an appliance that can burn wood. As we all know, the hard work comes with being able to reliably provide that fuel supply. In Galena context, the Loudoun tribe, City of Galena, and Galena City School District banded together and created a nonprofit organization by the title of Sustainable Energy for Galena, Alaska, the organization that I manage, with the express purpose of procuring the estimated 1,000 cords of woody biomass necessary to heat the facility. Next slide, please. The wood boiler was installed in 2016, and SAGA started timber harvest activities in 2015. As I mentioned, approximately 60,000 cubic feet of material, which is the equivalent of approximately 1,000 cords, depending on how you think about wood, is harvested annually. We harvest off lands through agreement with our regional native corporation. The fuel displacement due to biomass is approximately 100,000 gallons. What I haven't shared is that this project also required quite an extensive overhaul of the heat system itself. So whereas previously the system consumed nearly 250,000 gallons of fuel, with system improvements and the use of locally resourced biomass fuel, we're able to displace nearly 200,000 gallons, US gallons of diesel annually. Next slide. That reduction of diesel fuel obviously brings a number of benefits. With the fuel cost, those dollars staying in the community, we hire annually for timber harvest activities approximately 7 individuals throughout the winter season. We harvest from the beginning of November till mid-April as conditions allow. It's a bright sunny day here in Galena with perfect temperatures, and there's a crew hard at work as we speak, fulfilling these activities. And so we're able to bring a number of benefits to the community, but we also can't forget, the big value benefit that it brings in that we're able to have a reliable fuel source for our school so that students from all across Alaska are able to receive a quality education and an opportunity to walk across the stage with a diploma in their hand. Next slide. From these activities and the successes that we've had, we've been able to expand our organizational purposes to incorporate a number of other educational initiatives, as well as other energy efficiency and renewable energy projects in our community. These have branched out into the construction of energy efficient homes for low-income tribal members, the installation of a 1.5 megawatt solar array with a battery energy storage capability, partnering with universities and research institutions on exploring the feasibility of utilizing hydrokinetic turbine technology in the Yukon River to provide a complement to our power production system, as well as the beginning of an initiative to where the community is able to develop topic-focused community energy plans that address needs and values of the community. I have a number of other slides where I'd be able to show you some additional pictures, but I'm aware that I've approached the 10-minute mark and like to be respectful of your time. Pending any questions, this concludes the initial part of my presentation.
Mr. Kalke, if there's anything else you want to make sure you highlight before, so feel free to extend a few more minutes. You've certainly run the clock very efficiently, so if you had a few more items before we get to questions, just to ensure we focus in or don't miss them. Thank you.
Sure. I guess the most significant thing that I like to share with individuals or in groups that I present to is that this is really all based off of the hard work, the strong foundation built from previous generations. And it's about setting conditions for future generations. We could quickly just run through some slides to help paint a little bit of a picture. Next slide, please. We've used the motto of investing in ourselves to increase our capacity to contribute to the community, to complement, not compete. There are contractors who do other activities, and we, of course, stay away from that. Our goal is to fulfill niches where there isn't current capacity. Next slide. As I've said, we've done that through the construction of a number of homes for the tribal council. Next slide. Bringing quality places for families to live. We've partnered with the tribe to utilize resources out of the river. Each spring when the ice flows out from the Yukon, we get a large amount of driftwood that we're able to harvest. And as you can see the process here in these images and the home on the right, we're able to displace even further costs by using locally sourced siding for the homes. Next slide, please. Next slide. Again, increased capacity in small remote communities with small populations encourages increased activities. Next slide. Partnering with other organizations energy flows through these communities in a large amount of directions. It's not always about fuel, but about the lessons we learn and the traditions and activities that we are able to teach our future generations. Next slide, please. We're excited for this project to be commissioned this summer, where we'll be able to displace approximately 20% of the annual fuel used for electrical production. Next slide. And it's complemented with a large battery energy storage system. Next slide. Solar does work in the Arctic. This graph is proof. Next slide. It doesn't work in the dark winter, though. Next slide. And River, we're really excited about the research initiative to see what we can tap out of the hydrokinetic opportunities. There have been some attempts where it didn't work so well, like in the image shown up before you. Next slide. But there are installations in Alaska, like this one in Det'anchogh, that does work. This technology fills up those floats, fill up with water, and this will ultimately be submerged at the bottom of the river when it's producing power for the community. Next slide. And then, as I referenced, the development of a locally based community energy plan. Next slide. Creating job opportunities. Next slide. And being able to use the planning process as a energy literacy building opportunity throughout the community. Next slide. Next slide. As I mentioned, we often think of these projects as large scale, big multi-million-dollar projects, but they don't have to be. They can be small things like monitoring air control or air quality, having a safety plan for elders when the power goes out. Yeah, and then other big opportunities as well. Next slide. Oh, next slide. All right. That concludes it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, and I appreciate your efficiency in getting through the slides. I think you've created quite an interesting initiative. I have a couple members already interested in asking some questions. Well, it looks like all members. In this particular order, we will go to MLA Morris, Reed, and then Morgan. All right, folks. So we'll start online with MLA Morris, and we'll feed through questions and whatnot through the chair to ensure that our tech folks and, of course, our millions of subscribers can follow us properly. So, Mr. Morris, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, thanks, Tim, for the presentation. We've been getting a number of different presentations at committee from different communities in Alaska, and I got to say, I will be visiting Alaska in the somewhat near future. I've got so much curiosity about it now, and how it compares to our region, and how a lot of the challenges that you guys are facing are so similar to our own. So I always really appreciate presenters from Alaska for that reason. But to get down to the questions, my first one was you mentioned a couple of different kinds of economy. The transfer economy certainly is one that we are familiar with in the Northwest Territories as well. But yeah, my first question was, where is the money primarily coming from for these projects? Is it a number of different sources? Is it the Alaskan government? Is it kind of the oil revenue fund, the heritage fund that Alaska uses to fund so many community projects? Can you help us understand where you're raising money from for this?
Thank you, Mr.
You bet.
Thank you, Mr. Morris.
go ahead.
No, you're fine. It usually happens a couple times. Don't worry. Mr. Kalke, when you're ready, please.
Very well. Overall, in the state of Alaska, I think we could broadly say that most projects are being funded primarily through the federal government with some support from state programs. That is the case with our Galena biomass. However, that project required the installation of upgrades to the heat system themselves that the city of Galena assumed the risk through procuring loans from 2 different state entities. Now, with the fuel procurement and SEGA's activities, that is generated through a fuel sale agreement with the school. So they pay the city a fuel service amount for having the heat system operated, and they pay SEGA through production contract for the woody fuel. So that is something that we're very proud of, is that money, is not an annual grant or subsidy or endowment or anything like that. That money is earned by the activities of the employees, of which we've continued to invest in ourselves and increase those capacities.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm not sure if you're noticing a bit of a connection lag, but there seems to be a little bit. But that said, we'll forge through. It will be fine. Mr. Morris, do you have anything further?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I guess I was just more. Yeah, what I was most curious about is the economics of these things and how you guys are making them work. And yeah, that's if I could ask another question, it would be, how do you describe the economics of projects like this? Because it sounds like there's kind of a mixed level of it's clearly not something that would be viable all on its own. But how are you, I guess, making the economic case for these, or how are they paying for themselves in their own way? If you can help us understand that better, I think that would be helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, MLA Morris. Mr. Kalke, when you...
Yeah, I can speak most closely to the fuel expense, of which SEGA has our contract. But when we are competing against $8, $9, $10 per U.S. gallon of fuel, we're able to perform our activities at an overall operating expense, oftentimes significantly less than what the school would comparatively be able to purchase the same value of energy. You're correct in terms of the capital expenses up front for the infrastructure. Oftentimes, they would have long payback periods. And so I guess one would have to, further assess how remote communities analyze what is an acceptable payback period. From private investors' perspectives, and perhaps even government perspectives, we rest on typically a 7 to 10 year period as acceptable. But understanding with job creation and additional value-added benefits brought by keeping money in a community, a longer payback period may be acceptable. So that's something that I'd encourage others to think about.
Thank you for that thought. I now go to MLA Reid for her round of questions. Ms. Reid, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Tim, for speaking with us today. It was a pleasure meeting you at the Biomass Summit, and I'm so glad you could present to community. My question is perhaps fairly broad, but I just want to try and encapsulate the entirety of your presentation and sort of what I took away from it, which is that it seems very much that over the years and decades, and you mentioned building on previous success of community that came prior to you, how would you say that your community and indeed SEGA is able to parlay successes one after the other. It seems like you have started off in biomass, but then you're, quite rapidly, at least from our perspective, and reviewing your materials, parlaying those successes to more energy projects, and I assume through your community energy planning, really building this momentum. What would your key components to success that you have identified be, and what sort of advice would you give to someone looking into community energy planning? Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Emily Reid. Mr. Kalke, when you're ready.
The primary piece of feedback we get from others who come and visit our community is an emphasis and excitement on how the lead entities in our small community have developed partnerships and work together. It's all about partnerships and trust and identifying that common goal, and specifically a common goal more than, well, we want to benefit the community. Well, benefiting the community is nice. That's great. But with these projects specifically, how do we want to benefit the community? And are we all in agreement on how we want to do that? That occurs through consistency, leadership, and partnerships. And that has taken time.
Thank you, sir. Any follow-up, Ms. Reid?
Yeah, no, I don't at this moment. I think the thing that excites me most about the sort of cornucopia of options that you have successfully actioned for the community of Galena is the milling efforts that have, and the additional equipment that you've highlighted that are able to turn that into actually homes for the community. That's something that we, I guess the best word to say is struggle with here in our territory. So in the homes that were built, how much of the material was milled and fashioned in Galena specifically versus shipped in? Sort of like a breakdown of percentages, if you will. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Mr. Kalke, when you're ready.
Yeah, at this point, it is a small percentage. It's been limited to the siding. So when it comes to the actual percentage of overall lumber, I really don't know what that equates to. 5%, something like that. So it's not a lot. We definitely have aspirations of expanding that. But with the construction of homes, of course, there's code compliance and quality of lumber and so on and so forth. So the tribe will need to continue to expand their capacity and be selective of their harvesting practices to be able to construct an entire home out of locally sourced wood. To that point, though, one thing that we have steered away from is pre-constructed or prefabricated structures or packages of materials. Not that they're of low quality or bad options, but it reduces the amount of work available for local individuals. So yes, it's great. We could put together a stick framed home that was pre-manufactured and shipped out to us in far less time. But we would just much rather ship out a bundle of wood, 2x8s or whatever it might be, and spend the time with our own people learning the knowledge, skills, and abilities of how to erect it properly for a solid quality home.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I now recognize MLA Morgan. I believe she has a couple of questions as well. So, Ms. Morgan, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to Mr. Kalke, to Tim, for taking the time to answer our questions today and help us understand a bit better and raise a bit more awareness about opportunities out there for community-led renewable heating. You have a considerable amount of experience, 10 years now, with the wood chipping and biomass boiler system in your community. And so I'm wondering if you can tell us to what extent you've had troubles with the equipment breaking down over the years, or has it been difficult to maintain? When you've needed to find parts, replacement parts, has that been difficult? And whether it's been difficult to maintain the local human resources, the skills and the appropriate tradespeople that you need to make sure that it's sort of running properly, and then when things do go wrong, to troubleshoot and then fix the equipment over time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you for that. Mr. Kalke, when you're ready for MLA Morgan's question.
Maintenance associated with a mechanized logging operation is without a doubt the biggest component of everything. As I mentioned, throughout the harvest season, we have anywhere from 6 to 8 individuals operating the equipment and fulfilling different tasks. We all have specific titles, and our title should be followed with / mechanic, myself included. And so it requires a team effort to keep the equipment up and running. It requires a large amount of acquiring the appropriate tools, heating equipment, safety equipment, so on and so forth. Because we are operating on private land in the forestry industry, many of the certificates, so on and so forth, that some may need in other industries aren't required. We are fortunate to have individuals who live in the community with experience working for example, their regional native corporations and the oils up on the drill rigs with the oil industry, other heavy equipment operating industry, so on and so forth, that have come back to Galena in some cases to work for Sega and brought with them their experiences from other places. But without a doubt, being able to maintain the equipment and safely operate it is a constant challenge. And to retain those individuals, we've applied a couple of solutions that seem to have worked well. One is that we respect their time and we pay them accordingly to the industry standard, rather than what may be expected for laborers in other departments. For example, a city maintenance person or a city employee or a school maintenance employee. So we pay them well. The other thing is that, and actually that's one of the reasons why we branched into the construction. As I mentioned, we're winter activity only for the logging. So in our first few years, every April, I would wave goodbye to the guys and cross my fingers that they would come back the following September. And we really wanted to seek ways to keep individuals busy throughout the summer as well. And that's where branching out into the construction arm of our organizations really help. And to that, it's also, sure, these are Western market employment positions, if you will, but we've been very cognizant and flexible with trying to practice, I'm not sure what the right word is, culturally sensitive employment positions. So, for example, Here at the middle of April, it's very common for the men in the community to participate in an annual hunt. We will close down our operations so that they can go do that. Same thing in the fall time with the moose season. It's critical for their subsistence, and we attempt to be respectful of that.
Thank you, sir. Follow-up, MLA Morgan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Kalke, and that is a super helpful, wisdom, lessons learned from the experience you've gained in your project, just at a practical level of, how can you make this work? Sometimes we focus on the really technical aspects of, is this, machinery or technology going to be suitable, and we forget about the foundations, the basics, which is usually the people and the skills, and how do we retain them, and how do we get a solid crew and build that foundation. I wanted to ask about the wood chip processing process, and whether you have any lessons learned over the years about how to make it more efficient. I know it can vary significantly from place to place in terms of, how do you let the wood dry first, for how long, how much space do you need, how much space do you need for storage, and how does that all work? And that can really impact the cost and efficiency of operations in the end. I'm wondering if you have any lessons learned of things that didn't go well, but then you were able to make them go better over time. So far, most of the biomass operations at NWT have been with wood pellets, and you just buy a product and it comes the way it is. So one of the big challenges going forward might be the learning curve around harvesting your own wood, and especially making and drying and processing the chips themselves. So I wondered if you had any lessons learned. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, MLA Morgan. Mr. Kalke, when you're ready for her question.
Absolutely. We perform our chip processing with a what's called in the industry a disc knife chipper. It's a tracked machine that is maneuverable under its own power, and the stems are fed through the apparatus utilizing its own power as well with a grapple. We transport approximately half of the fuel supply from the field to the heat plant site so that we have access to a fuel supply during times of year that we cannot get out to the woods. The heating system turns on in August. At that time, we are still surrounded. Galena is a very low elevation right next to the Yukon River. Lots of low-lying wetlands and so on and so forth. The other half we leave in the woods. Now, both of these supplies, we apply a passive drying process. What I haven't been able to share is an image of the felling attachment that we use. Rather than being a traditional feller buncher from the forestry industry that simply fells each tree and puts it in a pile, this machine will fell each tree, pull the stem through the apparatus, taking off the branches, trimming the tip. And through that action, it scarifies the bark. That really is the secret to our sauce. It's how we're able to get a passive drying. If we were to just fell it and leave it for a year, it wouldn't dry out nearly at all. Challenges with the chipping? Absolutely. The knives go dull, things break. It's another piece of equipment that has to be maintained. The knives have to be sharpened. So without a doubt, that is an operating expense. Chipping as needed has been a big lesson learned for us. Rather than trying to stockpile half a year's worth of chips, we have a bin or a barn that can hold approximately 3 or 4 weeks worth of fuel, which then does require us to sometimes chip under very cold conditions in the winter. But again, it's about being able to provide a reliable employment position for folks and a wood product that is suitable for the boiler. If chips are left stored in huge piles, they behave like an agricultural product or hay, where they can actually warm up in the center of a pile of hay. If you've ever been at a farm and put your hand inside a hay bale, it's actually warm in there. That is the fiber using its stored energy to dry it out, or to try to dry it out, or to decompose, and you're wasting energy. So we try to avoid that. I hope that answered enough of your questions there.
No, that's good. I think we've come to the end. That said, not seeing anything further. So Mr. Kalke, why don't I give you the chance, the last word before I call the discussion a close. Do you have anything further you'd like to present or offer to committee as some thoughts, insights, or last comments for experience that you'd like to make sure it gets nestled into our minds as we look at this initiative? Thank you.
I think I'd just like to close again with an appreciation for being invited to share these lessons learned with this group. We are very adamant about moving forward in a sustainable manner that's appropriate for our community, about listening and learning from others, and then of course sharing. So I'm excited for this opportunity, to be able to strengthen partnerships across borders. I think it's super valuable in the circumpolar north and all across, of course. But Kate, I had the opportunity to meet you there in Yellowknife, and it was a pleasure. And it's neat how an activity like that can lead to something like this. And I certainly make my contact available to all of you. Should there be additional questions or other opportunities where together we can learn from and share with others.
Thank you, sir. I'll certainly say on behalf of committee, we're grateful for your time, certainly your expertise and wisdom so far on this initiative. May I wish you every bit of success as you continue to develop other opportunities within your community, whether it's seizing opportunities like you did with the wood to turn it into siding, to whatever else you can identify through the system of opportunities. I'm going to say congratulations to you, and keep up the hard work. That said, your comments, including your presentation, will be helpful in the work we're doing. As we're doing, our intentions are similar as to the work you're actually seeing results in. So we're hopeful that we can do more, present better policy, nudge the government in the right direction for these types of initiatives. And again, your examples are probably some of the great things that we can highlight of people actually turning ideas into action. That said, I want to thank you personally, as well as acknowledge our millions of subscribers probably enjoyed your presentation today. I think I'm a better person for it, and I want to thank you for your time today. The very best to you, and may I wish you well.
Thank you kindly.